Hey friends, welcome to the month of May. This week we're going to be leaning into the commitment within our rule of life to be in service to the church. And at this moment, May 2022, as many churches have sort of been navigating a recovery period or rebuilding their church, entering into a rebuilding period coming out of the pandemic, I think what I'd like to focus on this month is just a really simple question, which is this. How are you specifically thinking about what it looks like in your life to show up in your church community with a posture to serve? Just really simple question here. So one of the things that I've become aware of in the past couple of years, specifically in this world of contemplative spirituality and people leaning into this formational work or doing the work of spiritual direction, all of which is at the center of our life together in the order of the common life. One of the things that I've been thinking about and noticing is this tendency for these things to pull people away from the life of a local church. And what I've been noticing is that as people lean deeper into this very personal work of inner transformation and contemplative prayer and meeting regularly with a spiritual director, is that people often begin to wonder, how does all of this fit into the life of my local church? How do I show up at regular church services when things are sort of focused on different things in that church mode? And some of the conversation that we've been having is a conversation about how does this deeper formational work that I'm doing, how can it be more integrated into the life of a local church? I think it's really important. While also allowing the local church to do the things that local churches do, just like the basics of welcoming people into a life with Jesus, baptizing people, discipling people. And this commitment to integration is actually part of my own missional work and part of my own commitment to our rule of life to be in service to the local church. So the way that I lean into service of the local church is that I'm helping to lead and steward a local faith community called the Abbey, which is a contemplative vineyard church in Columbus, Ohio. And I do this out of my commitment to the order of the common life. And listen, friends, church is really challenging right now. Like maybe you know this, maybe you've been able to see as we've been trying to come out of the pandemic. But one of the things that I've been reflecting on recently, and it's something that I'm always sort of giving at least a little bit of thought to, is this relationship between religious orders as something that some people are specifically called to, where the commitment level is perhaps a little bit higher or at the very least, a little different. Like, what's the relationship between a religious order and the broader church? I think there's some things to sort out here as we continue to do this work. This is a question that I think we have to think about if this work of reimagining and recontextualizing religious orders for the 21st century is really going to take root. And we've talked about this in a couple other videos related to this commitment to be in service to the church. I've brought in some language that we're pulling in from missiologist Ralph Winter, who talks about the overall church as it exists in two different forms. So the normal church mode, Sunday worship and sermons and teachings and outreach, it's the part of the church where the entry point is the most broad and it's welcoming of everyone. So Winter calls this space the space of modality. And then things like mission organizations and special projects, religious orders being among them, he calls this space within the church Sodality. So there's this modality-sodality distinction that can often come up when we start thinking about the church sort of universal in its broadest sense. So even Wikipedia has an entry for this concept of sodality. It's the part of the church that takes on a specific form and is expressed with some type of specialization or specific task. And so our mission to reimagine monastic vocations for the 21st century, like this is a specialization. It's a specific calling that we as a religious order are putting our hand to. But within this specific calling of reimagining those monastic vocations, we have within our rule of life a commitment to always be leaning into some way of serving the church. So if we were a religious order who had a very specific mission for serving the poor, for example, or teaching English to immigrant families, our missional work, our specialization or our specific task would actually be really easy to name. Like I think I've used the example of Mother Teresa's Sisters of Charity as an example in the past. It's really clear missional work. The Sisters of Charity serve the poor in Calcutta. So part of our missional work is found in our commitment within our rule of life to be in service of the church, which doesn't feel quite as laser focused. I understand that. But what we're trying to do is recognize that the way that we're most effective in a life of living missionally, this is my conviction, is to pay attention to the invitation within you from God, and to pay attention to the gifting and compassion and the stirring in what God is doing in you, and then to allow that inner work to inform and empower the external work in the world through the church. So it leaves a little more room for you specifically to consider how God is inviting you to serve in the church, and then to respond to that work. That's the hope long-term that we're trying to flesh out. And listen, you might be in a city where the things that are happening in you, the things that you're wanting to put your hand to, they aren't really showing up in the local church context. Like, you can't sort of find a spot to sort of fit what you're passionate about. The things that you're passionate about aren't really being worked out in your local church context. I get it. That can be frustrating. But if this very specific thing in you is not something that you can lean into right away in your local church, could you imagine taking the love that God is pouring out into you, and all of the work that we're doing together, and all of the change that God is doing in you through His love? Could you just imagine showing up to a local church and allow that love to empower you to simply serve? Like, to just pray for people, or to host a table at Alpha, or to serve in a food pantry, or to set up chairs on a Sunday morning. Like, whatever it is, whatever there is to do, the love of God can empower you to do it. That's what we're doing here. And then to pray that maybe there's at some point an opportunity to lead a group into the practice of contemplative prayer, or Lectio Divina, or group spiritual direction, like something that maybe fits a little bit more with what's in your heart. Or maybe God would have you be someone that would help bring spiritual direction to your local church. We would love to help you explore that. We'd love to train you in our spiritual direction apprenticeship, which is starting in January, and help explore you how this could be something that you could serve in with your local church. So listen, friends, I think what I really want to say clearly is this: there is nothing about the work that we're doing in the order of the common life that is meant to take you away from the local church. So we still have really long-term vision for a monastery and residential living, and people who live deeply into community and prayer and hospitality. But even this long-term vision is nestled inside a larger commitment to the church. So whenever we do get a monastery, it will exist to serve the church. So friends, listen, the church is going through a tremendous challenge right now in our culture. Theologically, culturally, most people who think about these things, strategically, they think that the pandemic accelerated us into a post-Christian age. It sort of sped us towards that reality by about 15 or 20 years. And my hope for us is that we could be a dispersed community committed to serving and blessing and helping to rebuild the church. Like, this has always been part of the vocation of religious orders. And it's really important to me that if you're part of OCL, if you want to move forward with us, that you also have a commitment to the church. So obviously there could be some exceptions based upon stage of life and location, but I think there will be very few exceptions. And I'd love to chat with you about that if you're finding that really challenging for you right now. Okay, that's it. Much love and grace to you. There's some questions for you to consider this month below. As always, don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or you'd like to chat a little bit more about this, even outside of your formation group. So my hope is that you can come into the next formation group with something to say about this commitment in our rule of life and how this is provoking you to think and consider about how you might be involved in your local church in this upcoming season. Okay, much love, friends.